While fencing will hit the road to defend their national championship, somebody that's been hitting the road for the past 10 years is football, as they annually play in a Shamrock Series game. And every year when they make the announcement, this year it will be played in Yankee Stadium in the 100th year anniversary of the Four Horsemen playing Army in the Polo Grounds. Well, Polo Grounds, backspace, and Yankee Stadium should be a lot of fun for that one. I know as a Metro guy in the tri-state area, it should be a lot of fun for that. But it always brings the question, should it even exist? Should they take away that home field advantage here inside South Bend and Notre Dame Stadium? So we'll start with you, JJ. Should it exist?
We're all upperclassmen now. We know the gist. You don't love it as a student. You'll really love it once you're an alumni. I think it should exist. It's a great, unique recruiting pitch that Notre Dame can go around the country, play in NFL stadiums, and showcase their talent to basically anybody at any time. That being said, I think they also need to plan for the future, because at some point you're going to run out of stadiums. Yeah. We've already gone to Yankee Stadium twice. We've hit the West Coast. We've hit Texas. We've hit Chicago. You're not going to host a Shamrock Series game in, I apologize, to Eagle, Idaho, for example. You know, there's a finite number of cities that you can host these Shamrock Series games in when you consider, you know, the goal is to go to cities where there's a large alumni population. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a wall eventually where you're like, okay, do we really want to host a game in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania? Obviously, it's not going to get that point, but the point stands that there's a certain amount of cities where Notre Dame really wants to have these games in, and Notre Dame will run out of that S-tier list cities. So what do you do then? I would propose perhaps a switch. I would make the Shamrock Series game maybe 3 locations that you alternate between from. You know, if you love New York, do New York. Fenway maybe, I know they did a great game there, and I would have Chicago be your premier location. Play a Big Ten team there every year. I'm not sure what the contracts will be like. I'm sure Bavacqua will be far, far, far above anything I could propose on that front, but I think you do need to have a plan for once you run out of the dream locations for the Shamrock Series, and that will happen probably in the next decade. What is your adaptation to keep this uniquely Notre Dame feature and a really strong recruiting feature, to keep it on the schedule? What is your plan to make sure that you're not just doing the same things over and over again? My idea would be to have, like I said, these A-tier locations, you know, your New Yorks, your Bostons, your Chicagos, where you know there's going to be a great turnout, you know there's going to be a great environment, and you know they're marketable destinations. You know, maybe just shorten down the list and say, these are our Shamrock locations. We're going to cycle through those every year.
Yeah. No, I think that's really a great idea. I've thought about that too. You know, you're going down the list, you're like, oh, you know, do we really want to make the trip out to Detroit? Do we want to go?
I think a Shamrock Series Detroit could be fun.
I agree too.
It's drivable. It's drivable for students.
Mm-hmm. So I agree. I think that you can still expand a bit more. There's so many nice places, especially I would turn it into, you know, big on recruiting, right? Go to, you know, they're playing Georgia Tech in Atlanta at the Mercedes-Benz Dome this year. It's not Shamrock Series, but it's still a big game at a big stadium in a premier football state. Bring out all the Georgia recruits, all the Southern recruits out to the Mercedes-Benz Dome and give them a nice show. I think you do the same thing in the Midwest. You can do something like Cincinnati. There's a big Ohio, big Catholic presence there in Cincinnati. You can bring in those recruits for a big game. I think that's the key, is to kind of turn into recruiting. And also, you gotta harken back, like Jake mentioned, the New Rockne days, taking the team on tour, the Four Horsemen. It's something unique to Notre Dame, being such a national brand. Continuing the Shamrock Series allows them to stay at the forefront of the college football experience. You know, they're allowed to host these games in these large markets, find new fans, retain old ones, build this relevance. And I think it's a great opportunity for students to travel. The band gets to go to all the games. It's really unique compared to other schools. And the NIL opportunities is something we haven't really touched on much. I think that, you know, you're going to New York, you're going to Boston. That'll let guys like Audric Estime last year, Sam Hartman, this year Riley Leonard and Jadarian Price. I'm sure they're going to be doing plenty of meet and greets under the NIL banner to make some extra cash and really help them out in that department. And going out to the West Coast, I think there's really going to be an opportunity there for Notre Dame to stand out by having these premier games that athletes are going to want to travel to.
Yeah, and I think you need to, like you said, lean into recruiting, because, you know, one of the, you know, interesting things about realignment is the national brand isn't really a unique feature anymore. Penn State will be playing games in Southern California. Ohio State will be playing games in Washington. You know, these are new national brands. Notre Dame always had the kind of the unique distinction of being this only team that would be playing games in Indiana, California, Texas, wherever Notre Dame would be there. That's not going to be a unique feature of Notre Dame anymore. But like you said, because of Notre Dame's historical relevance, tying these games in to things like the Four Horsemen, things that maybe, you know, if you're an 18-year-old in Georgia, you don't really care about the Four Horsemen. But for your fan base and a very national fan base at that, it keeps, you know, the relevance of Notre Dame nice word choice on that one, in mind, and reminds people of why your brand is the way it is, what unique elements you do bring to the college football landscape. One of those things is history, tradition, playing a game that replicates the Four Horsemen game. That is one of those things that, really drives in the point that this is one of the sport's premier games. Why is that? Because the iconic gold helmets, because of the iconic tradition. Those are things that Notre Dame, even as other teams play national schedules, will still be unique to Notre Dame.
And please, please bring back the Four Horsemen merch. It's the coolest image. I need some of that for my own closet.